Hi everyone, it's Sarah or LavilyDay here with another video. Today I'm going to show you how I made this wig here. It's a yarn wig, it's the first one I've ever made. It's definitely not perfect. I worked on it over about 3 days this week after work, just doing bits here and there, and overall I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I'd seen enough tutorials online to have a pretty decent idea of how it worked in theory, but when it came to actually doing it myself, there were a couple of things that I did my own way. I think it kind of worked. I did record the whole process so you'll be able to see how I did it, although I will say that my setup was not ideal. I ended up working on it at my computer desk so that I could watch things while I was working, but the downside of this is that I was only able to set up my camera on my right, which will be fine, except I'm right-handed, so there are multiple times in this footage where I'm completely obscuring what I'm doing, and I'm so sorry for that, but hopefully you can still have a reasonable idea of what's going on. I'll do my best to explain things as I go, but if anything's unclear, just drop me a comment down below. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, so the first thing I needed to do was make a wig cap, and in order to do that I needed to protect my doll. I don't want any glue or anything like that getting onto her. So I wrap around with plenty of plastic wrap, probably a bit too much, I may have gone overboard, but I wanted to make sure that it was also flush to her head. Otherwise the fit of the wig cap wouldn't have been very accurate. Now from what I've seen, a lot of people make their wigs like this, but I wanted this wig cap to be really sturdy and really fitting to my doll's head, so I did what you can see me doing now, which is paper macheing on a bunch of fabric, except I'm using Mod Podge, of course. I wasn't all that particular with it, honestly. I just made sure I covered all of the areas at least once with the material, and that bottom part of the wig cap was quite sturdy. I couldn't help but think that it looks like she's got plaster on her head, as if she's had some sort of horrific injury and has hurt her head somehow. Once I'd finished putting the different bits of material on, I gave it another go over with some more glue, and when it dried I actually did another layer too, but that was off camera. While I was waiting for the hair cap to dry, I started on my yarn wefts. Off camera I tested the yarn, I brushed a segment out to see how long the fibre was, and that gave me a rough idea of how long to cut the different strands. Once all of the strands were cut, I doubled them over onto a longer piece of yarn. When they were all there, I started brushing it out. I did this with my fingers initially, which may or may not have been the best method, but hey, it worked, and it was pretty quick too, so I couldn't complain. And with that, my wefts are ready. It's the next day now and my wig cap is all dry, so I'm just drawing on top of it to show whereabouts I want it to be cut. Initially I was thinking about shaping it around her ears, but in the end I opted for a simple dome, since all the wigs I've commissioned thus far have caps like this, so there must be a good reason for it. It was so snug that her head cap actually came off with it. I tried my best to remove as much of the plastic wrap as I could, although I'm pretty sure there's still a layer of it inside the cap. I do a quick check and yep, it fits her pretty well. So it's back to the plastic wrap. I'm going to be gluing fibre onto the cap next, and when I'm working with glue, the last thing I want is for it to get on my doll. Even though I'm sure it will come off easily enough, I just would rather not take that risk. Even though my fibre's pretty straight, I thought I would try straightening it, and it didn't work. It actually melted the fibre. I think my straightener is too hot for this, but oh well. All the prep is finally out of the way, and now I can finally start adding fibre to this wig. I trim off the little wefts one by one and then glue them on. It's really that simple. I put a little bit of glue on the wig cap, put the fibre on top of that, and then more glue on top of the fibre, if that makes sense, and kind of brush at it with my brush so that all of the fibre is covered with glue. I started at the bottom and worked my way up. Initially my wefts were quite big, but I ended up making them a bit smaller and breaking them down. I tried my best to feather out the yarn in my fingers before applying it to the wig cap, just to try and make sure that every strand is securely glued on. Whenever I was stuck or unsure about where to place a weft, I had a nosy at Millie's wig to see how hers were placed, and it really helped me out. I remember that I was trying really hard to turn her around so that you could see what I was doing, but I failed to realise that my arm was in the way all the time anyway, so yeah, I'm sorry about that. I know I mentioned it before, but I'll do better next time, I promise. I only ended up using about half of the wefts that I had made. I thought I had not made enough, so that was a pleasant surprise. This whole process really tested my patience. I am not good with waiting for things to dry, and this whole thing is held together with glue that needs time to dry. I had to stop myself a couple of times from brushing the fibre or playing with it with my fingers. I just knew if I wasn't careful, I would end up breaking it and undoing all of this work that I had done. Slowly but surely, I worked my way up her head, purposely leaving a space for where her part was going to be. The way she's sitting really doesn't look comfortable, oh my gosh. Now, her part always kind of intimidated me. I wasn't sure how to do it. But then I came up with the idea of making 2 long wefts that I would put on her head and flip over on themselves to make, hopefully, a tidy part. I do think I was reasonably successful in this. Although in saying that, I know for a fact I didn't give it long enough to dry before playing around with it. It's a bit bulkier than I would have liked, but considering it's my first attempt, I'm not going to be too hard on myself. Here I am now, just applying the first weft for the part. I put a little bit of glue on her head first before applying the weft, and then patting it down with my brush. I did this pretty soon after making the wefts. The glue holding them together wasn't completely dry. I thought it would be better this way so that it wasn't too firm, but in hindsight it may have been better to let it dry. This may not have been the best way to go about it, but it worked alright for me. She's really rocking that mohawk at the moment. Once the first one was reasonably secure, it was time to put the next one on. Exact same method, I put some glue on first, then I put the weft on, backwards, and then folded it over on itself. I left it overnight to dry, and then it was time for styling. I knew I wanted her to have a braid or two, but I wasn't quite sure how to go about it, so I did Google a couple of tutorials for how to do braids with short hair. I'm definitely not good at doing braids, so it took a few attempts, especially with the yarn since it's so soft and fluffy. I actually used the bands I have for my braces as hair ties. At first I tried an asymmetrical style where I had a waterfall type braid on one side and a more generic braid in the middle on the other side. It was really fiddly trying to braid this hair, and it really made me wish this yarn was longer. If I'm going to do this again, I think I'll definitely have to find some longer fibre stuff, or even be brave and attempt it with some alpaca. I noticed that some of the ends looked a little bit rough, so I gave them a teensy trim to tidy them up. As much as I loved the asymmetrical look, there was something about it that just wasn't quite doing it for me, so I decided to take out the bigger braid. In its place, I did another waterfall twist braid, just like I had done on the other side. I don't know about you, but I think she looks quite cute like this. I really like how it frames her face. Lastly, I tidy up the ends by giving them a final little trim. And after that, she's all done. I was really proud of myself, I don't know if you can tell. Before I go, I thought I would show you a quick turnaround of the wig so you can see it from all angles. Please let me know your thoughts about how I did. Do you like this wig? Do you like the colour? Do you think it suits this doll? Tell me in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. It has been lovely, and I'll catch you in another video sometime soon.